everyone, I'm Christine Gritmon, and this is Let's Talk About Brand. I am here every single Friday, right now, 12 noon Eastern Time on Facebook and on Twitter. In fact, let me know in the comments if you are watching us on Facebook or on Twitter, as well as if you are here live, in which case I want your comments, or if you're here on the replay. But either way, thanks for being here. I also host a Twitter chat on Tuesdays at 12 noon Eastern called Chat About Brand. The chat does not have a guest, but it is always on the same topic as the Friday show, which does have a guest. And this week's topic, this got a little juicy. This is about the dark side of personal branding. Now, by dark side, what I really mean is sort of, there's one thing to have a personal brand, to put yourself and the way you serve and your own personal rock starness out there into the world, but then there's some people where they sort of lose the humanity, they engage in sort of sleazy manipulative tactics, and they have a lot of trust. The great thing about a personal brand is it does come with a lot of trust. Yeah, some people abuse that. So we're going to have a talk about that today with Rachael K. Albers. So Rachael is awesome. It's funny. I actually liked her gifts before I knew who it was. So it's great that I found who that actually is. I found out about Rachael through a copywriter named Tarzan K, who I found out about through Amy Porterfield. And Tarzan, basically, she was experiencing this thing where she was sort of looking back at some of the things that she had been participating in around personal brands and, cult of personality stuff, and sort of looking at it with a different eye. She's sort of approaching things differently, and she linked to several of Rachael's blog posts that dealt with this, because Rachael herself is a branding expert who is also realizing that with great power comes great responsibility. And she's kind of looking at the industry and at some people who are maybe doing it in a different way. Anyway, so we're going to be talking a little bit. So I had to reach out to Rachael. I'm like, we got to talk about this because it is huge and important to build your personal brand, but there's kind of ways with integrity and ways with not. So today should get juicy. So without any further ado, let's bring Rachael on. Hey, Rachael.
You're too good to me. You're too kind. Hey.
I try. I didn't even tell you the gift thing. So I'm a big gift user myself. I have a lot of my own, but I had already been seeing some of yours, especially with the blue background, and I was like, who is this lady? Because her face is so expressive and she just has great gifts. So that's you.
You know what? If that's what you know what? It's my legacy. What can you do? Some of us are meant to do big things. Some of us are meant to be the meme our boss uses in a work email to show he's still relevant, you know?
Absolutely. Hello,
That's
fellow
it.
kids.
That's me.
So first I want to talk a little bit about kind of what you do and what you have been doing, but you're going through a shift right now. But tell us a little bit about what you do as a branding professional, what you have been doing before we kind of get to the shift.
What I have been doing. Yes.
What have you been doing, Rachael?
What am I up to? What's going on? What's up around here? Well, you can see behind me, actually, I'm in my office, my home office palace, if you will, which I'm renovating right now. But behind me are the letters of my brand studio, RKA Inc., which I've run for the last 12 years. I like to say it's a reinvention studio for businesses that burn the rule book. And I kind of, when we wrote that copy for my rebrand in the fall, I didn't know that actually I was going to end up kind of like burning down my business as I knew it, or at least how I was doing business as I knew it. So it is on brand for the businesses that I serve, but a reinvention studio. So I work with people on up-leveling and shifting and transforming their businesses, like what most people call rebranding, right? And so from everything from, the structure of their business and their offerings to how they're messaging it, how they're getting it in front of the right people, their marketing plan, their visual identity, and the website and all of the moving parts that go together with that. So, really for most small businesses today, especially service-based businesses, their website is their storefront. Right. And so we've got all of these, really this is where they're meeting people for the first time. So that's what I've done for the last 12 years, businesses that burn the rule book. And now I'm burning the rule book. That's what I'm up to these days. So
You are burning shit down, and I love it. So in terms of burning the rule book, though, you're not just indiscriminately trying to like tear down what you built. You are re-examining what you are helping
Yes.
other people to build. We talked a little bit about this before you came on. So I'd love it if you just kind of said something about how you came to that, about how you came to that realization of, you know what, I need to do this with a different sense of integrity.
Yeah, I mean, it was a slow build because I joke. I started my business 12 years ago, and I didn't start my business to start a business. At the time, I was in law school. I quit law school, and I had an internship in southern Mexico, and I decided I wanted to continue to do this nonprofit work that I was doing with the arts and women and girls. And so I started selling marketing, branding, web design, copywriting services, freelance as a means to an end. I didn't self-identify as a business owner. So that's how the business began. I had a background doing marketing. I had studied it in school. So it's like, it was my fallback, and I fell back while I was also doing other things. Right. So that was kind of an interesting part of the story, only because the fact that I like didn't self-identify as an entrepreneur for a long time. I'm more self-identified as an artist or as a writer or as a creative. Meant that I had a lot of skepticism about the industry from day one. Like I came in to like early kind of digital nomad, like online marketing, personal branding culture in 2009, when a lot of the names that we know today as kind of like the icons of the online business industry were really getting their start right around then. But I wasn't looking to them like aspirationally. I was looking to them like, what is going on? I was kind of like from the outside, and my clients would ask me to do things for them, to build parts of their strategies out for them that were brand new, right? These were not the things that I had experienced before in my earlier marketing work, because the online marketing landscape was like a little baby,
So
right?
different. It was, I mean, even just thinking just 10 years ago,
And
everything was
that's,
different.
yes, just even 10 years, right? So
Yeah.
this is a little bit more than 10 years ago. Long story short, I'm doing some of these tactics for these people. I'm studying. I had one client that was like, I want you to keep your eyes on Tim Ferriss and read the 4 Hour Work Week and then write a blog for me about it. And I want you to keep your eyes on Marie Forleo because she's going places, and I want you to watch her. I want you to copy her, create a squeeze page like hers, write our sales page like that. And in the beginning, I did it. Like I did it. I had no problem doing it. I was like, okay, I don't care. I like didn't care. I didn't even realize how important any of these people would be in like the landscape of business and how much bigger they're at. I just didn't get it. So flash forward 12 years from that point. Okay, I kind of grew up and came of age myself in my business. My business matured over the years and really grew and became itself. I started self-identifying as an entrepreneur. And I watched, and not only did I watch, but my audience did. Like as these personal brands grew, I just got more and more folks coming to me who had some way crossed one of these people's paths. All of the different, the network of, let's say, celebrity entrepreneurs.
Oh, yeah. Very familiar with a
And they
lot
just
of
like,
those.
I've worked with somebody who's worked with somebody, like in every
Mhm.
case, people who've done every mastermind, every course. And the tie that binds across the board was that a minority of people were coming out of those programs and being able to apply these cookie cutter formulas that they were being sold,
Yep.
and having the success that was being preached to them.
It's
Right.
almost
And
like
so
a
I
gym
was
membership
realizing after
type
12
structure.
years, I'm helping people implement strategies that don't work. And then I have to clean up the mess. In the early days, when I first was doing this work, I blamed myself. I was like, it's because I didn't do a good job of implementing Marie Forleo's like simple funnel strategy or whatever, right? I didn't do Jeff Walker's product launch formula effectively enough for my client. But as I worked with hundreds of people, and then I started to speak, and then I was in contact with so many people, the majority of the information I was receiving was people feeling duped. And then I, as a marketing and branding expert, had to clean up the mess and say, actually, the real truth is you want to look at a launch timeline that's probably double what you're expecting. We're going to need to, because you don't have $100,000 to dump into ads, we're going to have to spend more time and energy on content marketing and building your audience. And yes, that's going to be either expensive or time consuming or probably both, right? I was having to reshape people's expectations, right? That's what I'm talking about. Like over the years, it just reached a fever pitch of I wasn't willing anymore I finally got convinced that it wasn't me and it wasn't my clients that were struggling, because I worked with enough experts in the field and I heard enough and I saw enough to say, no, this is actually, they're selling these regurgitated narrow strategies that really do not work for most people. Here's what does work. It takes longer, and it's a different road for every person. And it's not sexy to sell out the gate, but this is the truth. So that's kind of where we're at.
I'd love to dig into that. So, as you mentioned, there are a lot of people. I see it almost like a gym membership setup where it's like they realize that a small percentage of the people who actually do the programs, who do all of that stuff, will actually have that wild success that they're touting that anybody can have. And so much of that is because success and branding and all of that, it is a very individual thing. So I would love to hear from you kind of some of those tactics, some of those things you're seeing that were messes you tended to have to clean up, some of those myths that are being preached as universal truths that you have seen just completely fail time after time.
Well, I think most of the time it's when people give up and they, just like, as you said, with a gym membership or a diet pill, or we want to believe that there is a shortcut. So I would say that anytime people are packaging up their knowledge and selling it as the secret, the shortcut, the way to kind of skip the line. And one of the ways that I see this done, just like as an example, would be people selling scripts or saying, steal my scripts, my formula, my exact, step-by-step approach for launching a blank or whatever it might be, right? Or for sales or for things like that. Like, or, a lot of these kind of celebrity entrepreneurs, they essentially sell a templated business model, right? That they're asking you to replicate. The majority of the time that's going to work for only a small percentage of people. And most of these folks actually in their marketing materials, they do have it down at the very bottom in it with an asterisk, results not typical, right? But I mean, anytime you're going through a cookie cutter program, I'll name one thing. Like, for example, I'm going to use an example of B School, Marie Forleo's B School, which really is like within the women's entrepreneurship space, especially like white women between, let's say, 30
Even
to 55.
Though it's technically for everyone, there's a very specific angle.
Right. They've heard, so this is kind of like just a very kind of iconic example of a course that a lot of people have gone through and cited as the seed of their success. But my experience of that course has been that the real value in it, and you could argue about whether this is worth it or not, right? But the real value isn't necessarily the teachings. The real value, because the teachings are available in many places. The teachings are kind of very fundamental, like business and marketing basics in many ways. Now she packages it all together in a really, she packages these things together in a nice way, and they're not, she's not selling air, but the value and the money that people make out of B School is the community. It's the networking that they do. It's the business they get from the group. It's the connections they make in the group. It's the networking they do. It's the partnerships they make. That's where the money gets made in B School. And that's not what is advertised. So that would just be an example, I would say, and you notice here, like, I'm not saying that B School is a road to hell. Like, a lot of folks have come out of that and used those teachings. But one of the things that Marie herself preaches and teaches folks to sell is essentially a bait and switch, is kind of creating an inflated perceived value when in reality you're giving, something quite small, right? Like you're really giving like anyway, I think I sound like I'm like, well, you know what I'm saying here, Christine. You get what I'm putting down here.
I am picking up what you're putting down, though, which is the point, as people are saying, follow these steps in this order and you will have this type of success.
Correct.
But
yes.
That's not actually how you succeed with these programs. And then people who do follow the steps, which won't be most people, because humanity, but then people do follow the steps and they feel like they've failed because they're going with what they were told. But that's not necessarily the secret sauce.
Right. And what happens is, like, folks get kind of caught in these funnels, these literal funnels, and they invest too much upfront in. Now, I'm not going to say there's no value to some of these programs, But what ends up happening is there's this mythology around if you just follow this person, if you just take their mastermind, it's going to be a cause and effect, bing, bang, boom, and what we're really being sold is like recycled strategies that worked maybe 7 years ago. And there's a little bit of truth to them still. But what I think the greater danger here isn't necessarily like whether what is being sold is valuable or not. Because like that, the truth is like you can make a case for value in like all kinds of situations. I think the bigger thing that I see go wrong is folks get caught up in the mythology. They invest in the program, and often, these celebrity entrepreneurs are kind of linked arms with each other. They're all selling and cross-selling each other's shit.
They all know each other. They're all besties. You want to be up on their stage,
right? You want to be on their stage, and you start buying into the whole world, right? And you buy from this person and this person and this person and this person. And it's almost like a status symbol. Too. It's like I did B-School and I did James Wedmore's thing and I did this. And what have you done? Who did you work with? Who did you affiliate with? Who did you buy from? Who did
Are you trying hard enough? Are you hustling, girl boss?
There's that level of it too, whether you affiliated with someone like yourself or who did you even buy from, right? Like before you get into those circles, who you buy from also is like your own coach purse, if you will, right? You're like, look at me swinging around my designer labels.
100%. I knew for a fact, and I have bought some of these things too, and I knew for 2 years before I bought B-School, which I still have not done, that I was going to buy it through Amy Porterfield because I wanted her bonuses. Still haven't done them.
There you go. Exactly. It's very common with a lot of these programs that people will buy in because there's a culture of doing them too. It's also like a rite of passage and you feel like you're missing out. And that is, these feelings of FOMO aren't inherently wrong that like marketers would provoke them in us. But here's the danger. The danger that I'm getting to is I see people buying into this mythology. They invest a lot of money. And then they spend a lot of time in strategies that probably aren't a good fit for them because they're one size fits all. That's the one size fits allness is what I really take issue with, which there's a case for, there's a place for that. But they invest in it, they buy in, maybe they plunk down 10 grand to be part of somebody's mastermind or 20 grand or 30 grand. And they find a way and they get kind of sucked in. And often they waste their energy, their momentum, and their capital, if they had any to begin with, they waste it on this stuff. And by the end, they realize, oh, you know what? I didn't really need all this stuff, but now they're deflated. They think there's something wrong with them. They've got a crisis of self-confidence. They're out of money now. And so that's where I see the greater danger is I think the greater danger is in folks essentially selling these templated cookie cutter formulas. And then they link arms with each other and they create kind of like a system of, it's like a weird alternative university structure. You could end up spending just as much as folks spend on a college education within the online marketing, coaching, masterminding universe, right? And you're not getting an actual anything near a university level education. You're getting a bunch of people who learn from somebody else how to take their kind of anecdotal views on things and package them up and resell them and then become friends with somebody else who will, link arms with them and package them up and resell them to their audience and on we go. That's the real is that.
Yeah.
And how people drive the predatory, and these people are getting rich off of the fact that they know people are bleeding their bank accounts dry and they don't care about what happens to them after they go into the red. That's not my problem, right?
Yeah. Tim Lewis said before, and I put it up before, but this sounds it echoes what you're saying, so I'm going to put it up again. Some people get accidental success almost, and then teach what they did that worked 5 years ago, whether or not it actually was, deliberate. One thing that I want to dig into a little further is you're pointing out that people, they drain the money dry because it just really, they were able to present, do this and it'll work. Do this cookie cutter thing and it'll work. It's steps to success. I want to talk about the personal brand element of that because the fact is I think that it's not accidental that so many of these programs are not sold by companies so much as they're sold by individuals. They're sold by people. Not only is there someone like a Marie Forleo who's heading up B-School. You're not buying from the B-School organization. You're buying from Marie. But also, you don't buy B-School directly most of the time. You buy it through part of the affiliate network and all of that. So I want to talk about the power of of the fact that these things are deliberately being specifically sold person to person, and why that's so effective, but also why it's dangerous. Because I mean, these programs you're talking about, they tend not to be a company's program. They tend to be a person's program. So I'd love to dig into your thoughts on that and on why it's so impactful that it is tied to an individual.
Oops, I was muted. I was muted because I get all emotional, and I comment. I have to like calm myself down when I'm in interviews. It's like, stop nodding, just
I'm
be
super
neutral.
exciting. I mean, I
I'm
understand.
excited. I'm all worked up. But I was gonna say, this is one of my, this is for me when we were talking in the pre-show. I'll give people a little behind the scenes. We're kind of, for me, when I think about the dark side of personal branding, I think about the fact that we've got all of these companies, they're corporations in many cases, with a human face being sold and marketed and positioned to us as a girl next door or a guy next door, or or maybe not a guy next door, a guy in the Hollywood Hills who used to live next door, but then he stumbled on the secrets to success, and now he's got 70 million Lamborghinis,
But someone you want
right?
to be friends with, someone you feel cooler if you're
well, right. So
the cool kid.
we've, there's a lot of talk in the United States about how creepy it is that corporations are, for legal purposes, often treated in the courtroom like people. Corporations are treated. It's just like it's a very complicated thing. But what's interesting is this is the flip of that, because what we have here are corporations, are companies with a human. It's not a mascot. It's not a spokesperson. The company is named after a person. So the company is presenting as a person. And often with these personal brands that become corporations, like the Marie Forleos, or even the Amy Porterfields, who's now ascended to, in her own ads, referencing that her company is an 8-figure company, which means she is generating 10 million plus in revenue every year, right? So she's graduated from actually being truly a girl next door, just doing, a freelance or a small business. Her business has now grown.
You buy Amy. That's still what you buy. She's still the product in theory.
Yes, and that's really, I mean, we know now, this is what branding people are selling their clients, is the knowledge that when we're buying from people, we tend to have more trust. We tend to make buying decisions easier. It builds a more brand loyalty over time. Like McDonald's spent so long trying to get us to have a relationship with it so that we would keep going back our whole lives. Right? Mm-hmm. You get a Happy Meal when you're 5, and then you go even when you're 55 because you want to remember that Happy Meal that you had when you were 5. So this is easier. It's easier to do it people to people. So what's scary and insidious, and I think that we don't know very much about it yet because it's so brand new thanks to the internet, right? So it's very brand new, is now we've got companies, but that are led by people and look like people. And then what happens then when we've got these big, let's say 10 million plus companies running around, but looking like they're girls next door, is we don't hold those companies to the same degree of responsibility. We're not looking at their ethical practices the same way. We're not looking at any of their areas of impact. And when these companies cause harm, and in many ways, like extreme harm, financial harm, emotional, like all these different things that have happened, we look and treat, and we're gaslit even by the PR behind these companies themselves. We're encouraged to treat the companies like the way we would a person or a friend, right? Because not only, especially with women, and I've referenced like Marie Forleo and B School a lot, that's just an accessible one. She already blocked me on Facebook or on Instagram, so it's not like I haven't gone on the record with my thoughts about Marie.
But there's a lot of hiding behind she's only human.
Right, exactly. It's like I'm gonna make mistakes. If Chick-fil-A, and when Chick-fil-A doesn't get away with that. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not gonna say they've lost all their business, but the reality is the public has held a company like Chick-fil-A responsible, and there have been varying degrees of boycotts and people no longer eating there because of their politics, right? But if Chick-fil-A comes out and is like, you know what, like we're just trying, I'm listening and learning, I'm doing the work, I'm like, that's just not going to fly. It would be hilarious, right? But we've got companies now with that are like really growing in the amount of revenue that they're generating. Now, a lot of this also comes down to like, what are the margins there? How much money of that is ads that are coming back to you, just being spit back to you? But it just all comes down to like, we don't hold these brands as accountable. We don't also, even just in terms of like, we look at a company, and even from like a legal perspective in different countries, this obviously varies, but we have expectations around environmental practices, human rights practices, all these different practices, and the ways that companies are supposed to be responsible, socially responsible, environmentally responsible, like all these different things. At least theoretically, we are trying, that's what we have regulations for, theoretically, and laws and shit. But with the personal brand, and, as it kind of moves into coaching and consulting and this kind of very nebulous, unregulated area, again, we don't have those same standards. Even if we want to make sure that McDonald's is like selling us real food, for example, right? There aren't the same, like the FDA has to, I don't know, I'm making things up. I don't actually know what the FDA has to do, but I'm certain that they can't just sell us cardboard and tell us it's a hamburger. But guess what? Life coaches can.
Yes.
Right. And people on the like online personal brands can, not even just from a legal perspective, but we don't hold them to that same degree of accountability. They can share unscientific information. Now, if a big corporate, if Nike shares unscientific information in its advertising, in its marketing campaigns, there would be a huge scandal, right? So it's like if they're trying to promote like a niche view or something like that. So all I'm saying is, this just very uncharted, brand new kind of wild, wild west of the World Wide Web territory here around companies that are like running around, companies in people clothing, right? Like a wolf in sheep's clothing. We've got companies running around in people clothing. And what's crazy about it is a lot of these folks didn't start that way. They didn't start as companies, right? Marie Forleo really was a woman sitting in her apartment making videos in front of her radiator. In 2009-ish, 10, right? That really was her.
Amy Porterfield.
However, something happened along the way.
Facebook girl.
And
Amy became the course guru.
Yep. Now, Tony Robbins was involved somehow. I don't know. That's where it all gets weird. But
there's whole thing. People can check your blog for all those rabbit holes.
I'm just saying, there's Tony Robbins was somehow.
Yeah.
He was in there too. But that's the scary part for me of the personal brand. And how then these brands are able to get away with so much. I mean, at one, a lot of these celebrity entrepreneurs, some of them have teams of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 people, right? Some of them are more lean, and that's part of what they sell to.
Sometimes we even hear about their teams when the person themselves does something wrong.
Right. Oh, the teams are nice. Exactly. Exactly. And that's another thing too, whereas with a company, the whole team is the whole company is treated as part of the company, right? So you're not like, well, my company isn't the team. In Rachael Hollis's case, that's who you're referencing here.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, this is on the record that she's in the New York Times for this at this point.
Yeah.
But Rachael Hollis, like you're referencing, she was able to kind of at least try to tiptoe away from blame based on her team. But the reality is her team is her. She is a corporation. That is what she is at this point. That is what she's selling. That's how her business is made. That's how her business model is. So it's a really fascinating territory that we're in. It's like makes me want to go back to school and get like a doctorate. But then I've talked to friends who have doctorates.
I want to go back and study social psychology so badly. We're just about out of time, but I do have a couple more things I want to ask. Sorry. So first of all, just to kind of bring it home a little bit. So the biggest danger of the fact that we're more easily manipulated by companies, corporations, sometimes huge ones masquerading as people, because we have that trust factor. But of course, people should develop their personal brands. We're not saying don't succeed, but people who are trying to build their personal brands but don't want to venture into fake territory, or what we're talking about here, people who are getting away with stuff because it's so unregulated, because they're just a person. So what are some ways we can kind of check ourselves as we build our personal brands to make sure that we don't become this?
Well, yes. So the first thing I'm going to say is like entirely unsexy, which is that I get this, as I'm in my own kind of odyssey of getting really clear about identifying what really is going on in the business space right now. Like and kind of identifying some of these more insidious things. First of all, these problems we're identifying are linked to systemic issues, right? They're linked to greater issues in our economy, in the way that we treat each other as a society. So I think for me, it comes back down to values work. And I'm going to plug someone who's not me, because I just did a workshop a couple weeks ago with Pause on the Play, which is run by Erica Corday and India Jackson. And they have a really awesome like intro workshop for this. It's all about kind of getting clear on your brand values, not from the perspective of what people have told you sells, or, you know, it really is about the impact that you want to make in the world, the legacy that you want to have, what you want to show up and stand up and be, and what contribution you're making. I think that kind of stuff is really undercut, and it takes time, and it's work you're always going to be doing. So like the unsexy answer here is, people ask me this question a lot and they want me to be able to like swap it out, be like, okay, we're going to take the sleazy crap and we're going to swap it out with the substitute. But the whole thing that I was saying is that cookie cutters, you should always be suspicious of cookie cutters, and you should always be suspicious of anyone that kind of runs in with the answer and says, I have the answer with a capital T-A. I think one of the things that I'm realizing, that I realized after working for 12 years as on my branding studio, working with hundreds of people, thousands if you can include speaking, is that the work takes longer than they expect it to, that it's highly, like for small business owners, it's highly personal and charged and creative and artistic, and it's not a science, it's an art. And if people went into the process with that and went into building their business with that expectation, I think it would be long-term, they would be more successful, right? So I don't have a swap. There is no substitution. This is going to be individualized and personalized. Often people will say, what should I take instead of B-School or instead of this fancy program led by celebrity entrepreneur? If you're going to invest in training or invest in coaching or something like that, I would say invest in a program with someone small enough that they can give you personalized, individualized support, because that's where the magic happens. That's why I said before, like the value, at least I'm not a B-School. I never did B-School. The value I've heard over the years and that I can say across the board seems to be the biggest impact people have is the money they make because of the group, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm saying that's probably coming off of the individualized, tailored, like unique realizations and partnerships that are coming out of that. It's not sexy. There is not, like Tony Robbins doesn't know a secret that you don't know, And so, but this all goes back to values work, I think, and building your own body of work. And I think we were talking about this before. As I kind of step into my vision of how I want to be supporting people going forward, I'm really drawn to folks who understand the importance of creating essentially like a body of work, and creating a written or a spoken or some sort of a record of not just about like what your business does, but why, right? Like some people call this content marketing. You can call, but really it's about kind of painting the picture of the world that you're creating as a result of your business, and the world that you want to leave behind, or what the world, or how the world needs to move and shift, and how you're going to help do that. Right. And there's so many ways that you can create a body of work. You can have a show, you can have a blog, you can write a book, you can do, be a speaker, you can run workshops, you can. But I think truly that businesses that are keyed into contributing meaningfully to the industries that they're in, those are the ones, that I'm personally driven to work with, because I think those are the ones that are actually changing the world as they're making money. Right. So I don't know if that's the answer. That's my answer. Right. But that's the thing. Anybody who comes jumping in here, Christine, and says they have the answer with a capital T and a capital A is lying to you. So
I love that. And you've made me feel so much better, by the way, about not having a system. Because of course, I mean, the pressure is out there. Like, you have to have your methodology with a cute name and like an acronym. And so I'm pretty, this has felt very justifying. So thank you. I wanted to, we had a couple questions from the chat, not really a lot, but let's see what we've got. So Dave wants to know where you got that awesome rainbow jacket.
Actually, it's Alice and Olivia. I'm sad that I didn't burn it. It's a little too hot for sequins right now.
Little hot.
Burn it up.
Little hot. But then he had a follow-up real question, which is, what are some tips to stand out more with your personal brand without falling prey to doing what seems to be working for everyone else, at least on the surface? So it sounds like a lot of that is values work.
Yeah, and I like to start. We talked the whole topic of today is the dark side of personal branding. And I love to start with the stuff that pisses people off as an entryway into figuring out what change they want to be bringing to their industry or what change they want to be bringing to the world. So often the stuff that you see out there that everybody else is doing, and there's always like this little like kind of wiggly, thought in your mind like, that's not sitting right with me for some reason. Actually, that's a good place to start to figure out how you want to differentiate yourself. So I like to start with like, what stuff is ticking you off about your industry? What stuff are you sick of, seeing out there? Or what stuff do you feel like isn't being said enough? That is always, in my opinion, a really good starting point. But yeah, this question of how to stand out it's a popular one. And I would say it's an osmosis of, becoming an expert in your industry. People will say, keep your eyes on your own paper and don't look at what anybody else is doing. And I disagree with that, if only because keeping your eye on what other people are doing and looking for the gaps, looking for the empty spots, looking for the things they're not saying, looking for the spots that they're ignoring, the spots that cry out for your attention, right? That's where change gets made. And so you need to know what's going on, in your industry, on the landscape, so you can say, here's what isn't happening. For me, I see like, I don't think that we're talking enough about the ways that and how we're marketing our businesses, how that's contributing to the greater culture that we're all living in. So I'm interested in marketing as a tool, not just for building people's businesses, but marketing in pursuit of meaning. My message has become stickier and more, it's caught more attention over the years, the more I've just been in praxis with my values and then my industry, and then, moving around in my industry and like working within my values and then seeing where the next gap is or seeing the next thing that pisses me off. Right. So that's where I would say, and that's not easy work. It's not quick work. It's long-term work.
I love that. And that's so key. The quick fix is the wrong fix. And then final comment, Jesse just said that when he read the SNL, a business comedy, he said, sounds dope. Can we be friends? So that seems like a perfect segue to tell people where they can and should find you, Rachael.
I am accepting applications for friends. You know what? When you burn it all down, you've got some space. My dance card is not full. No, I'm kidding. You can find me anywhere the internet is sold, really. But I'm mostly on Instagram is where I get wild. Okay, so you're gonna want to follow me on Instagram. You're gonna find, if you look for my name, Rachael K. Albers, you'll find a few things and you'll be confused, and that's part of the journey. So go and have that adventure, I would say. Yeah, you can find me anywhere. Type Rachael K. Albers into Google, see what comes up. Go on a journey. You'll end up where you belong. You'll find your way to me.
I love it. Thank you so much, Rachael, for being on. I always love guests who really just like keep it real and cut the crap, and you seem like perfect fit for that. So thank you so much for that. Speaking of bringing you awesome guests, I do have my Tuesday Twitter chat, which is always on the same topic as my Friday show. This coming Tuesday, which is one of the last days of June. How'd that happen? It's about becoming a you-preneur. What the heck is a you-preneur? That's such a little like catchphrase, but I think we all sort of instantly know what it means, and we know that partially because of my next week's guest, Chris Ducker. Chris Ducker wrote Rise of the Youpreneur. His whole thing is about youpreneurs. He actually is a big part of the start of my journey because I saw him speak about personal branding back at Social Media Marketing World 2017. So definitely try to join us for both of those next week, the chat on Tuesday and the show on Friday. Thanks very much.